Coming up in Season 3 of Access Africa, we take a look at the business footprint of Brand South Africa. Join me, Yelang Prujinka, as we crisscross the continent and peel back the African hotspots where business is done. From Accra, Port Louis, Johannesburg, Kigali, Lagos and Durban, we explore business in the city. Let's meet Toko Modise from Brand South Africa.
Brand South Africa's main role is to manage the reputation and image of the country. This is a job we do domestically and internationally. It comes two ways. In that firstly, domestically, we're supposed to rally South Africans behind the brand. So we have to drive pride levels, we have to drive patriotism levels so that everyone stands behind the brand called South Africa. Then internationally, we have to market the country so that we can get tourism in, we can get academia to come and study here. We also have to get investment in the country so that employment can be increased in the country. So basically those are the two main roles that we take care of. The challenges we find as we do our research in the continent is that South African business don't always know the technical know-how on how to establish business in the continent. Sometimes it's also an issue around language, sometimes it's an issue around culture. But there are companies that have made it, who consider themselves as ambassadors that represent South Africa in the continent. And those I could name as Stampic, for example. I think that comes from the role that South Africa plays in many of the world or global bodies that we participate in. For example, if you look at South Africa's role in SADC, you look at South Africa's role in the United Nations, you look at G20, you look at BRICS, we're probably the only country that has that kind of drive that is established to bring the continent together with us. So we see ourselves in a way that says we are the entry. We are the gateway in the sense that we bring all of that through our participation in global bodies. South Africa is the third largest source of foreign direct investment into the continent. So it connects to the question of what is South Africa's role in the continent, in bringing business into the continent. So we walk our talk. We don't only talk about people coming to invest in the continent, we also are part of that game.
The National Development Plan is regarded as the cornerstone of South Africa's socio-economic development and is designed to spur on collaboration between government, business and civil society. One of the key priority areas involves aggressively promoting business competitiveness through investing in world-class infrastructure and growing the nation's cities. In fulfilling its continental development obligations, South Africa is creating roads, ports, and energy infrastructure that enables the activation of both inter- and intra-continental trade corridors. These projects form the heart of the program for infrastructure development in Africa. South Africa's advanced port and cargo infrastructure is helping small, medium, and large enterprises make the most of global opportunities. Transnet is Southern Africa's leading freight, rail, port, and pipeline authority. It controls a network of 21,000 kilometers of rail and heavy haul lines that represents about 80% of Africa's total rail infrastructure. The efficient operation of this entity is essential for growing the country's and continent's business competitiveness. At the helm of this organization is one of the country's most experienced rail trans executives, Mr. Siyabonga Gama.
Transnet has been around since at least 1863, and what we thought we would do is to make sure that the expertise that we have amassed during that period in terms of running pipelines, ports, railways, the Port Authority, as well as our manufacturing sector in terms of transit engineering, that we could leverage that for the rest of the African continent. Our infrastructure investments are quite critical, but also for both backward and forward linkages in terms of integrating the region from a maritime as well as inland interland transnet freight rail are quite critical in terms of assisting us in terms of the movement of goods, imports and exports, the impact on trade between countries, making sure that we move commodities between producers, commodities to markets. Look at logistics as corridors or super highways. And when you have very good linkages between the inland ports as well as the seaports. What you then get is a much more efficient and predictable and reliable logistics solution that customers are looking at, because producers is really about fetching and carrying commodities, but it's also a dynamic process. There's a lot of other things that happen within that space, either customs documentation and shipping guarantees with the banks. So it's a whole range of things that need to happen. We have created an entity called Transnet International Holdings, which will assist us in terms of our diversification strategy, but also our geographic inroads to the rest of the African continent, where we can share the expertise and work with other local entities in the port, rail, and pipeline space in order for them to also benefit from this, so we can transfer skills, build capacity, but also enable them to create competitive and efficient freight logistics in their countries.
The sizable movement of people and goods between cities, ports, and countries requires an organized workforce to accomplish certain targets. Gauteng's growing population has meant finding innovative means to ensure productivity in this economic hub is not lost to work travel time. Jack van der Merwe, a visionary and achiever, the CEO of Gautrain Management Agency, a man who continues to alter perceptions around public transportation. Would you expand on how your company's partnerships operate?
Well, this is quite a unique contract. It's a public-private partnership. So this is really a risk sharing between the government sector and the private sector. So the Gauteng provincial government has signed a concession agreement with the Bombela Consortium, and they have to design, build, operate, maintain. And then after 15 years of concession, they give it back to us.
Now, what is the general feedback from overseas visitors when they encounter the Gautrain infrastructure?
Well, I think they're quite surprised. It's a very high quality. We run at 99.5% punctuality and 98.5% and higher availability. So this is comparable to anything in the world.
How would you say Gautrain has contributed to the ease of which business is done in the city?
Yes, I think, if the economy grows, there's always a demand for movement of people, goods and services. We are the economic heart of Southern Africa, but we're only 1.42% of the land area. So if you grow the economy, there's a bigger demand for movement. And what happened in our province is that making a trip became unpredictable. You had to plan, and you would either be early or late for a meeting, but the chances you'd be on time. Gautrain has come and given you a fixed schedule. From Tshwane, in Hatfield in Tshwane up to Park, 42 minutes. You can set your watch on it. And because we're running, the availability and punctuality so high.
Do you have any plans for connectivity on the balance of the continent?
You can piggyback on the knowledge we built. You know, when we started this, you couldn't phone a friend. There was nobody that knew anything about it in Africa, so we had to do it as a total greenfields project. Now we have the experience. We've been asked by KwaZulu-Natal, they want to build a line from the airport to Durban to Pietermaritzburg, so we're helping there and rolling it out into Africa. So there is you know, when I started the project, I used to go overseas and ask them, you know, what would you do differently? And I thought if the people come back to us one day and ask us, what do we do? Now we get 2 or 3 delegations per month coming in asking us, how do you do it? Because it's easy to spend a lot of money, but we've actually, on a limited amount of funds, we've installed it. So you can go overseas and look at systems which are very expensive, but not affordable. So I think there we've created the balance.
What legacy would you like to leave with this infrastructure as Gautrain?
I think the legacy that we've left is that we've made public transport a mode of choice. In South Africa, public transport has traditionally been a mode of force. You used it because you had no option, no other alternative. Now we're saying, leave your car at home and don't sell your car, but don't use it for peak trips. Use your car to go to a restaurant or so, you know, to go on holiday. But don't use your car when there's a limited space during peak. And I think that's the legacy we've left.
South Africa is at the frontier of new sectors on the continent, such as oil and gas, telecommunications, port development, and oceans economies, just to name a few. With Brand South Africa focusing on businesses from South Africa that do business on the balance of the continent, and that in itself attracts foreign direct investment. Stay with us in this season as we bring you more of how business is done on the balance of the continent. My name is Yelang Prujinka. Thank you for watching.